Welcome to the world of Pokemon, where there is so much to see, new monsters to fight, and new Pokemon to capture. Welcome, Naofumi Iwatani. What starter would you like to pick to continue this journey? Starter? What the hell is even going on? Starter Pokemon? Like that game? How am I even supposed to choose? Who am I supposed to choose? I guess I don't have a choice. I guess I'll just go with you. Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. I'm back with a brand new What If. What if Naofumi was the legendary Pokemon trainer? I'm extremely excited for this What If, and I've been hyping up this What If in my head and figuring out certain things I want to do, and I think y'all are gonna enjoy this a lot. So, without further ado, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, and we're gonna get right into the What If. Let's get it. After Naofumi was seemingly sent to a brand new world, he's now standing with the choice of a multitude of starters. He goes down the list and he decides to pick one starter out of all of them, especially not really knowing anything about these so-called Pokemon. And he chooses the Pokemon by the name of Mudkip. Shout out to my member Wikipedia. He was the first to respond, and that is going to be our starter. So let's just get right back into it. After Naofumi chooses his starter, he appears right by 3 other people in a nice glimmering yellow light, and he looks to his left to see 3 people. And what he sees is someone with a spear, someone with a sword, and someone with a bow. He's confused to see this. He really doesn't even remember what happened prior, but he does get a glimpse of what happened. He remembers reading a book that said the 4 cardinal heroes, but he came here with Pokemon? He's not so sure how that even works, but he looks at his belt to see that there's 1 Pokeball on his belt, and he is able to actually enter his inventory to see that he has 5 potions and 10 Pokeballs. He's not so sure exactly how all this would work, but he assumes it's very similar to something he's seen in his homeworld. Maybe he can injure Pokemon and then capture them. But is there even Pokemon in this world? How would that even work? Can he capture quote-unquote monsters? He's not even really sure, but he'll have to contemplate this later. As they introduce themselves to each other, he learns the names of the other 3 heroes, Ren, Itsuki, and Motoyasu. He then begins to speak with the knight that is going to address them, basically saying that they are the 4 cardinal heroes and that the king wants to speak with him, or speak with them. They arrive in the throne room, and the king begins to speak with the 4 cardinal heroes, but looks at Naofumi in confusion. Who is this person? He doesn't have a shield, but maybe that's for the best. He begins to explain what mankind has been going through. The waves, a series of demonic invasions, and frankly it's been terrorizing their world and they need the heroes' help. The heroes, other than Naofumi, begin to say that they better be compensated, in which Naofumi just kinda shrugs, saying that he agrees that frankly this is going to be a hard job, so they do need to be compensated, in which the king says of course they would be, but for now it's getting late and he wants them to go take a rest in a hotel that they have. So they do just that, and they begin speaking to each other about how this world works, but Naofumi brings up that frankly he doesn't remember much from his world. When he was sent here, it's like he forgot everything. He's not so sure. Maybe his world is exactly what his powers are, but even that is not very clear. All he remembers really is reading a book, and then he was gone. They begin to question what is he exactly, because everyone has these medieval weapons, but Naofumi has balls? Pokeballs, supposedly? Naofumi says he's not even sure what these are, but supposedly he can catch Pokemon. Actually, before he was quote-unquote summoned here, he was given an interface. He begins explaining the interface, that there were tons of choices in terms of starters and starter Pokemon. He throws his Pokeball out, and a Mudkip appears. They all are in complete shock and awe. They are actually pretty impressed though, saying that this is really cool. They begin to say that it's like building a party of NPCs, and Naofumi never saw it this way, but he guesses that does kind of make sense. But with all that said and done, they all head to bed and they go back to the throne room the next day. The king meets up with them once again and shows them everybody that's there, basically saying that they will choose where they want to go in terms of choosing what hero they want to take this journey along with. But unfortunately, Naofumi gets nobody at all. They begin to think that, well, for one, he's not the shield hero, so yes, that's good, but can he even fight? It doesn't even look like he has a weapon, just like a small backpack and also some Pokeball strapped to the side of him. And the other people, the other heroes, begin to say that it is slightly unfair that nobody chose Naofumi, but they all shrug, saying that Naofumi will be just fine. They've had a conversation, and Naofumi can definitely handle himself. And Naofumi agrees, saying that he should be able to figure it out. It's not a big deal, as long as he's compensated fairly because of it. And the king says, of course, and he compensates him with 1,500 silver pieces. After that, they then head off and begin their journeys. Naofumi immediately decides that he's gonna go out into the wilderness. Maybe it's for the best to see if he can either catch some more Pokemon or monsters and or train Mudkip. So he does find these small balloon animals, throwing out Mudkip, and he begins to defeat them. Mudkip easily one-shots all of them with Tackle, and it's blatantly really simple to actually defeat these monsters, at least because they're such a low level. This basically will speedrun Mudkip's levels all the way up to level 10 relatively quickly, and this gets Naofumi up to level 5. It seems like Naofumi, when he levels up, he actually can gain special abilities, and he looks at the experience list, and his experience list is all based on XP gain for his Pokemon. At level 5, he gains more XP per Pokemon. At level 10, he gains more attack power per Pokemon. And then it keeps going so on and so forth. But level 20, it shows a little ring, and he's not sure exactly what it is, but he won't really question it. But then he slides a little bit, and it shows a ring, a bracelet, a necklace. It seems like he can either choose, or maybe he can make one of those at level 20. He's not really understanding the whole aspect because it is shaded out, but he continues on with his training. But he realizes quickly that just Mudkip does make this kind of hard. He even catches one of the little balls or the little balloons, and it actually turns into something called a Voltorb. But he decides that that probably wouldn't even be beneficial in the long run, so he decides to just pack it away. But when he packs it away in his backpack, he gets an interface, and it says that he stored it in his PC. He can actually have tons of Pokemon, but it looks like a max number of 6, but he can put the rest away into his PC. So he does just that, catching a couple monsters, but just patching them away in the PC, and he actually gains XP from this, and also gains something called more catching experience. And this catching experience allows him to actually catch Pokemon a lot easier in the long run. So any Pokemon that he feels is weak, or not on the real level of Mudkip or potential of Mudkip, he decides that he's going to just pack away for now. But after a decent amount of training, Mudkip then finally evolves. He begins to glow, moving up and down, this glowing aura surrounding him, and he turns into a Marshtomp. Now that he has a Marshtomp, his Marshtomp is actually a level of 16, making him about a level of 8. He continues to grow in level, and he'll exponentially grow more and more as he gets more and more Pokemon. It seems like that he actually can get some new items as well, in which he needs to look into. Maybe he can go to a weaponsmith, maybe he can give them a blueprint and they can somehow make the items. So he decides to do that. When night comes and a night approaches, right before, sundown, he decides to go to a weaponsmith. He meets a man by the name of Elhard, and he speaks with him briefly, asking if he can give him blueprints and he could make an item for him. He then says that there's no guarantee he'll be able to do it, but he'll definitely try, and he'll only charge Naofumi if he's successful in making the item. So he takes some blueprints out of his backpack, some blueprints that he was actually given. There's a couple of them. There's Pokeball blueprints, but also item blueprints. So there's Pokeballs, Ultra Balls, Great Balls, stuff like that. And he shows them all of them, but obviously Elhard tells him that the Pokeballs vary in how hard it is to make. Pokeball very simple, actually. He says that he can probably get a couple done in the next couple minutes. Great Ball is going to be a little bit harder, and so will Ultra Ball. And Naofumi asks how long would it take for him to do an Ultra Ball, and he says it depends on how much money he's willing to spend, because he might be able to get the Ultra Balls done maybe by tomorrow, but it would only be about 20 of them, and that would cost him a pretty penny. We're talking 300 silver at least. Naofumi gives him 350 silver and says that sounds good, and he says that he gave him 50 more than needed, and he says that it's a little tip. Frankly, he knows that this stuff is going to be pretty difficult to make, so he deserves that little bit of extra money. And Elhard says that he knows that this kid has the right mind for all of this, and he thanks him. And then he shows him some more blueprints as well. It seems like there's various items he can make, and Elhard looks at like 3 to 4 different papers full of items, and he asks which one does he want, and he says that he's interested in something called a lucky egg, in which Elhard says that's probably one of the only items he's not so sure about. These other ones, like the XP share, he might be able to construct the item, but he might not be able to actually make it work. He begins to explain that all these items are kind of weird, and he might actually need to send him to the magic shop owner to basically enhance the magic. It seems like there's even instructions on it about it. So Naofumi then nods, saying that it sounds good, and he'll leave him to it, in terms of the lucky egg, an XP share, and some other stuff like that. So Naofumi gives him all the blueprints and says he'll be back. He needs to go handle some things, and Elhard says he'll get right to work, as Naofumi leaves him some more money. He leaves and then begins to head to his hotel room, but then he's stopped by somebody, stopped by an unknown figure, and he begins to introduce himself, saying that he runs this business of some sorts. He invites Naofumi and says that he asks if he wants any party members. Naofumi begins to say that he has party members, party member, and he says that of course his so-called monster mons or Pokemon or whatever, that's very, very interesting, but you could have someone that actually fights for you. Someone that can, go out there and actually fight without being in that said Pokeball. Naofumi is interested in this and walks in and follows the man, but finds that it's a slave market. He doesn't feel so good about this. He has a good relationship with his Marshtomp, and it's like he's friends with him. It's not like some slave to master type of thing. And he begins to say that he's not interested anymore, but he just pleads and asks him to look around. Eventually leading to Naofumi seeing a little girl that is crying and wants to get out, so he decides that he'll take her. And he says that, that little girl, she's not very strong, she's basically on the bridge of death, but Naofumi says that he doesn't care, he'll take her and he'll pay whatever. And he says that it'll be cheap, 15 silver is all, and he tosses him 20 and says that he'll be taking her now. They leave without even a slave crest, and the man asks if he wants one. He says no, he doesn't need one. He takes the girl out and says that she's free to leave whenever she wants, but he is one of the heroes and he wants to help her rehabilitate back into the world. He doesn't really understand this world entirely either, but he wants her to be safe, not trapped in a cage. This is the first time the girl by the name of Raphtalia has heard something so nice in a very long time, and she's shocked, doesn't even know if she should believe him, but he does throw out Marshtomp, and Marshtomp then hugs her, and she's shocked to see this. It's like he has little Pokemon or monsters. It's like little animals. She finds this adorable and says that it's like he has pets, and he nods, sort of, but Marshtomp is like his partner in crime. And he kind of laughs, and Marshtomp poses as well, and Raphtalia's mood is definitely lifted immediately. They head to the hotel room, and they all sleep, and Naofumi sleeps on the floor, and Marshtomp and Raphtalia sleep on the bed. After they wake up, they head out, and they want to cure Raphtalia's flu, in which they pay a little bit of money for that. And then after doing so, they actually head to the magic shop owner. she introduces herself, and he explains that, well, he's heard that these items that he wants made are actually going to need some magic. And he shows her some blueprints, and she nods, saying that, yeah, it's definitely going to take some magic. And she says that for a right price, she'll be able to do it pretty easily. He asks what that price is, and she says for him only like 10 silver for all of them. It's simple magic. And he nods, thanking her for it, and she looks at his belt, seeing that there's Pokeballs on it, and says, wait, you're that hero, right? 5 silver, don't worry about it. No, I won't charge you more than 10, that's ridiculous. And he nods, thanking her, as he leaves. He arrives at Elhard's weapon shop once again, and gathers all the supplies he gave him. The lucky egg, and he explains that the lucky egg is kind of just like an egg. He found an egg, and it should work pretty well. He's not exactly sure. The XP share, obviously all the mechanics are there, but it needs to be enchanted, and then all the Pokeballs. He puts them on his bag. It seems like the bag is infinite. It's kind of weird, but he then leaves, and he arrives back at the magic shop owner. When he arrives back, he shows her all the items, and she begins to enchant them all for 10 silver. Or 5 silver. He gives her the 5 silver, and they head off as they say their farewells. And Naofumi actually does go back to Elhard to get Raphtalia some armor and a weapon, in which he tells Elhard not to worry because she's not going to be fighting too much, but she does seem to be excited to fight alongside of him, so he wants to give her the means of doing so. Elhard agrees, saying that it does make a strong woman if she begins training at an early young age. Naofumi then nods and heads off to the wilderness once again, in which they start training more and more throughout that day, and Raphtalia gains levels pretty quickly, especially because they have Marshtomp to help. Marshtomp is very, very good at defending Naofumi and Raphtalia, and he has some new moves as well. Some ground type moves, some pretty strong water type moves, and some various other moves as well, and he's able to defend them with relative ease. And he just easily defeats most of the people that are there, or most of the monsters that are there, frankly clearing out the forest a couple times over. Naofumi gaining a substantial amount of XP. Marshtomp does gain a good amount of XP, but obviously it's slightly dipping. Even with the lucky egg, it's slightly dipping because of the levels that are around. Marshtomp now at a level of about 23, and Naofumi getting to a level of 15. Raphtalia actually is pretty fast at leveling as well, being at a level of 8, and she just started training with them. So after that, he decides to actually head back to Elhard. Maybe they can find a new place to train, because frankly Marshtomp is growing at a really good rate, but imagine if he fought higher level Pokemon, it would be so easy. So he does just that. He heads over to Elhard, and he begins explaining that he could go to Loot Village. He's pretty strong, but he's not really strong enough to go out and do some crazy stuff. So Loot Village would be the best place for him and his party. Elhard then explains that he actually looked at some other blueprints as well. These potions, it seems. He's able to heal his Pokemon in various ways. And also, every time he puts his Pokemon back into his belt, after about 5 minutes, they'll be fully healed. And that's why his Marshtomp never seems to be hurt. And Naofumi is shocked to see this. It's like he's some personal healer. And Elhard says, yeah, but it does also seem that you can make a Pokemon healer. He explains that this healer is instant. So if he takes it around with him in his backpack, he could heal them instantly. But also, that's not very convenient because it does look like there's cooldown timers on it. Naofumi takes the blueprint and does see it, that there are cooldown timers on this healing system, and that it's best used if, well, moderately. So he decides that he needs some potions, and Elhard winks and says he was just thinking that as well. He puts out a bunch of potions and says that he went by actually the magic shop owner and actually made a ton of potions for him. Regular potions, super potions, hyper potions, and he gives them all to Naofumi, saying that they actually should work on Raphtalia as well, and any other party members he gets. It's kind of odd. It's like an actual healing potion, but better, but it's simpler. He doesn't really understand the whole physics and magic behind it, but he does say it's pretty convenient. And Naofumi asks how much that would cost, but Elhart says that it's fine. It was actually a personal project of his. He enjoyed looking at these blueprints, and he's going to continue looking at them, and he'll have Naofumi pay something later. Maybe some monthly fee or something. He doesn't really mind. Naofumi smiles and nods and says they'll be heading off to Loot Village now. So they head off to Loot Village, and when they arrive, they begin speaking with other people, seeing what they can sell, blah blah blah, all of that. Eventually learning about a nearby cave, that this nearby cave has some very valuable gems. So Naofumi decides that maybe it would be a good idea to go over there, and he's heard that there's some monsters over there too, so he can train on them with Marshtomp and also Raphtalia. And hopefully they can actually get some of these gems, and then eventually they can make some substantial amounts of money. So they head over to this said cave and begin actually mining these gems, not seeing any monsters. That's until Raphtalia sees something terrifying, a two-headed dog monster. Immediately Marshtomp is standing in front of them. Naofumi screams out for him to use Water Pulse, and then right after use Mud Shot. This slows down the opponent, or slows down the two-headed dog monster, and the Water Pulse actually confuses him as well, giving another opening for Naofumi and Raphtalia. He looks at Raphtalia to see that she is terrified, but he reminds her that it's okay, that they'll be alright, but she needs to break through this fear that she has. So immediately, she's able to stand up, grip her sword, and charge at the monster with Naofumi and Marshtomp, and they're able to defeat said monster, knocking it out. While the monster is slowly but surely dying, Naofumi decides that he's going to try and catch it, throwing a ball at it, and well, an ultra ball at it, and it begins to rock. 1, 2, 3. Stars begin arriving around the ball, and it seems like he just caught the monster. The two-headed dog monster not having two heads, but does turn into a dog-like Pokemon by the name of Houndour. It is said that Houndour is a dark fire type, but the thing is, it seems like it's already a pretty decently high level, being a level of 22. What Naofumi doesn't know that it would be soon to evolve, not too long from now. He basically just puts Houndour in his bag. Eventually he'll be full health, so it should be okay, and they'll be able to recover completely and they can start their training once again. He checks in on Raphtalia, and it seems like she is a lot more comfortable in a way. She feels a lot better with what she's been dealing with, and now she can basically stand up for herself. Naofumi smiles and is glad to hear this, and now it's time for a month time skip. They go through a month of leveling up and preparations. Now, Houndour is actually a Houndoom. On top of now having a Houndoom, Naofumi actually got levels on both of his Pokemon. His Marshtomp does seem to level a lot quicker than his Houndoom. His Houndoom is only at a level of 26, but his Marshtomp is at a level of 32, being a good bit stronger than obviously his Houndoom. Naofumi himself is at a level of 21, actually unlocking the thing he was thinking about, well, was looking at earlier. And he finds out that it's something called a Mega Ring. He looks at it and begins to bring the blueprints to Elhart and gives it to him to have basically reconstructed and figured out. He also buys new armor for Raphtalia, who's actually at a level of 25, and then they head off to the Dragon Hourglass. They begin looking around to see what time and when the next wave will actually start. And they see that the next wave is going to begin in about 30-ish hours. And that's right when they see the other three heroes approach him. The other three heroes actually talk to Naofumi for a bit, asking how everything's been going, and he says everything's been fine, nothing too eventful. He's gotten a new Pokemon, and actually has some evolutions that are really cool, but other than that, he doesn't really have anything too special to even write home about. And he also does point out that he has Raphtalia as well, who is kind of like her, or one of his partners on top of that. Matsuyasu says how does he protect her when he has to basically use Pokemon or these monsters. And he says that Raphtalia also protects herself. She's a very good swordsman. And he's so shocked to hear this. Why would a pretty lady like her have to protect herself? But Raphtalia disagrees. saying that Naofumi was the one that actually pushed her to get past her fears and past everything that she's been dealing with. And, well, Ren and Itsuki are actually pretty shocked to hear this and give Naofumi their respects, saying that that's a really good thing for a hero to do, especially, but Motoyasu doesn't really see it that way, but keeps that to himself. Eventually, Naofumi just leaves, and he goes back to Elhar to talk about what he thinks, and he says that it's going to take him some time to actually reconstruct some of this stuff. But he does need some DNA from his Mudkip / Marshtomp and also his Houndoom. It might have something to do with these gems. He might be able to make these gems, or at least a glass orb, and then the magic shop owner will use the DNA to actually create these things called Mega Stones. And Naofumi is actually shocked to hear this and nods, saying that he'll actually go give the DNA to the magic shop owner. Sounds good to me, kid. I'll bring her over the orbs or the little stones when I get the chance. Yeah, I appreciate it. It would be cool if it can be done before this next wave. Is that possible? And Elhar nods, saying that it's definitely possible. He'll try to get it done as soon as possible, even before the next wave. And Naofumi thanks him, and they head off once again, actually thinking they should go back to Loot Village, that maybe they should just set up shop there, and that they do have their own little place that they use to have a healer, a PC, and stuff like that, and they have a lot of supplies already built up over there. Naofumi stocks up on those supplies, thinking that they might need it in the long term. So obviously he begins to organize and do other things like that, and also begins to tell Loot Village that they're going to set up here the best they possibly can, but they do need to be ready for the wave, either evacuated or ready to fight, and have maybe certain barricades and stuff like that. And that Marshtomp can actually help. Marshtomp runs over and basically poses toward them, and basically Marshtomp begins to use his ground type moves to actually use some of the ground to make little barricades. And they're shocked to see this, and Marshtomp begins to run around creating barricades around the place. In which, after he's done, it's about that time. They actually have to get ready for this wave. It's about to occur in the next, well, coming 24 hours now. So they head back to the magic shop owner, and she explains that she did create these orbs. It seems like Marshtomp's DNA isn't built for it, because he's not actually at his max evolution. And Naofumi is shocked to hear this. Really? He's not? What about Houndoom? He is actually at his max evolution. He actually has a Megastone. Here you go. She hands over the Megastone and says that once Marshtomp evolves to his max evolution, bring him back. He might also have a Megastone, and it may be even stronger than Houndoom's Mega Evolution. Houndoom begins to move in his Pokeball, basically getting mad at that, but the magic shop owner kind of laughs and says that it's really no offense, that he was a starter-like Pokemon, so he probably is slightly stronger. And Houndoom kind of stops his restlessness, and he gets thrown out of the Pokeball. He puts the Megastone into, obviously, the Mega Bracelet that he has, because he decided to get a bracelet instead of a ring. And then he puts another of the stones right onto Houndoom, and this little, you could call it like a necklace of some sorts. He then walks outside and taps on the Megastone, and begins to evolve Houndoom even further. Houndoom begins to change, and now he can Mega Evolve into Mega Houndoom. But the thing is these Mega Evolutions are actually temporary. They're not forever. So there's no real reason for him to basically use this all the time. It would actually just drain the time that he can use it for. So he de-Mega Evolves Houndoom, pets him on the head, and says that once the wave starts, they'll Mega Evolve him, and then him and Marshtomp will protect Loot Village and do the best they possibly can. They all nod, and then they begin to get ready, or, well, begin to wait for the next wave. The wave then begins. Tons of these hornet-like monsters, skeletons, zombie-like monsters start coming out. So he throws both of his Pokeballs out, Mega Evolves Houndoom, and they begin to basically destroy these monsters. Houndoom is extremely strong, especially in terms of base stats, because of this Mega Evolution. Marshtomp is a higher level, maybe not as high base stats, but I will say, a Marshtomp at a level of about 32, 33 now, is very, very strong. So the wave monsters are kind of defeated in a wash, Naofumi and his party just easily eliminate them and gain substantial amounts of XP, leading to Marshtomp even evolving. Now his starter is fully evolved into a Swampert. Now having a Swampert, he can actually use the Mega Stone on him, but with the wave coming to a close, he decides to hold off on that. He runs off once again, and he actually heads to the main boss of the wave. And when he arrives, he sees that the Chimera is about to be defeated by the other heroes. So he decides maybe it would be a good idea for him to throw a Pokeball, or more like an Ultra Ball at it. So he decides to do just that. He throws the Ultra Ball, and the other heroes look at him like he's insane. What the hell did he just do? Well, what's even happening? He says that he can catch the monster, and that it will definitely benefit his party as well. They say that's kind of unfair, that they should get it, and he just shrugs his shoulders, saying that they can't even use his weapons. Watch, check it out. He throws a Pokeball at one of them, they catch it, but then they start getting electrocuted, throwing the Pokeball back at Naofumi. Naofumi basically tells them again that he has his own special thing. He watches as the ball continues to rock, and then sparks fly once again, and it's now captured. And that capture turns into something legendary. Something extremely legendary. And that is a Pokemon by the name of Entei. Now Fumi's confused. It's weird because it doesn't necessarily look like an Entei, but it does have the similar features the Chimera does, at least, excluding like the wings and stuff. But Naofumi does kind of understand why it would turn into that, but now that he has it captured, Entei is part of his team. The wave is now finished, and Naofumi's team is now Swampert, Houndoom, and Entei. He looks to see what Entei's level is, and it's actually bridging the gap of level 50. That is a lot stronger than he actually has on his team. His highest is actually 36 currently. So having a level 50 on his team definitely puts him at a good advantage. On top of this, Entei has some really good moves, including some high-powered fire-type moves, some decent dark-type moves, and also a priority extreme speed move that could even help with travel. But with all that said, the wave is over. He meets up with Raphtalia and the rest of his party, obviously, and he begins to basically speak about what they should be doing until they're invited, or well, by the castle, to a hero's state dinner, in which Naofumi decides to basically go, and he actually lets out all his Pokemon to basically just roam around and have a good time. He tells them all to be on their best behavior, and of course they listen, even Entei. Entei is extremely powerful, but he does respect Naofumi now that he is kind of his master in a way. But this night would go extremely wrong, extremely fast. And a woman by the name of Mine informs Motoyasu that Raphtalia was basically bought from a slave market, and that the other three people, or the other three monsters in his party, are basically slaves. And immediately Motoyasu, hearing this, walks over to Naofumi and challenges him to a duel, in which he immediately retracts his Pokemon and puts him on his belt, and says that that sounds ridiculous. Why would he duel him? And he says that Raphtalia is a slave, but Raphtalia says she's not. There's no slave crest on her, and, well, for what, it doesn't make sense for her to be a slave. She would have been gone already if she was quote-unquote a slave. What's stopping her from leaving? And he says that it has to be some mind control that maybe one of his monsters have, or maybe his monsters are threatening her, and she just shakes her head. That's just not, and tells him that that's just not true. And Raphtalia says that they should just leave, but immediately one of the guards grabs her and begins to muzzle her. Naofumi throws out his Entei, throws out his Swampert, and throws out his Houndoom, Mega Evolving his Swampert, and immediately Houndoom is growling at everybody. You guys better let her go. Trust me, I'm protective of her. Imagine how they feel. They begin to basically growl and snarl at everybody there, and they basically let Raphtalia go, and Entei basically picks her up on his back and jumps through the window and leaves. Swampert picks up Naofumi and they jump out, and Houndoom begins to just blast fire at them as they leave as well. They can also sense the hostility. They're not gonna basically take any chances, especially with them. Immediately they head off to, well, Loot Village. They head off there to basically get ready to leave. They're not going to deal with these people. For some reason they want to turn on them. But just as they're about to leave, and just as they're hooking up some, well, cart onto Entei, Motoyasu and Mine appear with a bunch of noble or knights to basically say that Motoyasu rules this land now. Naofumi isn't having it, saying that that just sounds ridiculous. They're not going to employ their own taxes and take it out on Loot Village, and he says that if he wants to fight, that they can fight. But they're going to try to say that a duel is between 1 versus 1, but that's not the case. Naofumi has a party for a reason, and he tells Motoyasu that he can have his whole party fight for him too, if that makes him feel more comfortable, and he won't even have Raphtalia fight. He'll just have his Pokemon fight. And Motoyasu scoffs at this, saying that they won't do a fight because he's obviously chicken, even though Naofumi kind of just said that he would. But Naofumi says that, alright, then what do you want to do? We'll do a race, 3 laps around this area. Entei looks at Naofumi and nods. Oh well, I guess you have a deal. He hops on Entei and their race begins not too long after that. And let's just say, this isn't even close. Using extreme speed, Entei sprints past every magical thing they can use. On top of that, they try to use magic to slow him down, and it only halves his speed, but extreme speed still is priority. So it still is extremely fast. And he's able to win with ease, telling them to leave right now or else. And Entei begins to growl, and the other 2 Pokemon that he has, Swampert and Houndoom, come out of their Pokeballs. Motoyasu and Mine argue about this, but one of the Queen's Shadows show up and basically gives her a note telling her to leave. And she is forced to leave. And they say that this isn't over, and they head off. Loot Village thanks Naofumi profusely, and even thanks his Pokemon, and he says that it's truly no problem, that it was ridiculous anyways, the idea that they were able to do such a thing. But with that said, Naofumi says that he has to leave, and that they'll be in contact. That he'll check in on them every so often to see if they're okay. They thank him, and he heads off with his party, basically looking for some new villages. And during this trip though, he actually does come across a wealthy trader. This wealthy trader begins to basically explain to him that he needs a ride to a nearby village, and of course Naofumi is going to do that for him. He takes him in the cart, and they begin to head off once again. That's until a group of bandits begin to attack them, in which Naofumi and his party, including Raphtalia obviously, are able to defend against them with relative ease, and they begin to say that they're going to make sure that Naofumi's name gets thrown through the mud, and that basically he either lets them go or else. Naofumi kind of nods at this and says that they can just bury them underground. How about it, Swampert? He looks at Swampert, and Swampert basically makes a giant hole and throws them in it, and they begin to beg for mercy, saying that they promise they won't say a word, they won't do anything. Naofumi shrugs and says, well, he can't trust them. They keep burying him underneath, and they begin to say that they'll give Naofumi everything. And then Naofumi eventually lets them go, and basically tells them that if they even say a word, that they'll be buried under the ground. So they head out, and Raphtalia begins to question if he was actually going to do that, and Naofumi shakes his head. I had no intention of doing that. I'm not going to kill them by burying them, that sounds horrible. But Naofumi then just leaves with the trader, getting him to the area that, well, he needed to go. The trader then says, as a thanks to Naofumi, that he's going to teach him new skills, introduce him to new contacts, and anything he really needs. So this will actually turn out to be extremely beneficial to Naofumi. And after some exploring and some time out, he actually does find something, this abandoned alchemist tomb. It's housing a cursed seed, and it seems like this so-called cursed seed is actually missing. But just as he wants to do more investigation, he actually gets a message from the trader, learning that there is a task for him to go do, which is to deliver some herbicide to a village. Naofumi and his party discover though, when they arrive at that village, it's overrun by monstrous plants. Luckily, this is going to be relatively easy for Houndoom and Entei, especially to just kill the regular plants. It's, I mean, one flamethrower and it's basically over for those plants. And in terms of the trees and lighting things on fire, Swampert can handle that with his water. So it'll be pretty easy, you could say, to get around that. They easily fend off the monstrous plants as they go into the village, and they speak with the people there. They explain that Motoyasu came with this seed, it seems, to end their local famine, but it sprouted and just started making a complete ruckus, monsters attacking them and everything. And Naofumi says that he can handle it. He should be able to handle it with a herbicide and maybe some other methods as well. So they head over to where the main monstrous plant is, in which Swampert begins to trap it in like basically the ground, making it stuck, and then they begin to breathe fire on it, Entei and Houndoom. Rautalia also helps with her sword, cutting through any other monsters that are trying to attack them, and Naofumi, using the herbicide and the water of Swampert, he basically injects it all with the herbicide. After the monster begins to slowly but surely shrink, he throws an Ultra Ball at it, and it begins to rock more, once, twice, 3 times, and then it sparks up, and he just caught a new Pokemon. And for some reason, the monstrous plant just turned into a grass type. He's not sure if this is just random, but he does find it kind of interesting. And that grass type is Chespin. Now adding a brand new grass type to his team. He heads back up to the village and explains everything that happened, and says that he has really no way of getting them more food or anything like that, but Chespin actually disagrees. Chespin begins to basically spew out seeds, and basically just begins to say his name over and over again. And Naofumi pats him on the head, saying that he did a good job, and they all are basically grateful for this little monster. They're not sure what it is, but they are grateful. Now with that being done, they all head off once again, and the trader actually gives him something else, merchandise to actually deliver to a nearby hot springs. They take it to the hot springs, and they actually decide to stay the night over that hot springs, and he lets everybody out of their Pokeballs. They all take a nice rest and just get some, nice downtime for once. After that actually passes though, they do learn of something very mysterious, a disease that is spreading through a village, but why is it spreading through that village? They head over to check it out, and they see everybody extremely sick. Now Fumi actually has a means of healing a lot of them, using this antidote spray on everybody, and it cures them right up. It seems like it's perfect. It just cures all diseases. He's not exactly sure, but at least the antidote worked. Maybe if he had some full heals, it would fully restore anything in terms of any sickness and such. But for that, it's just basically air poisoning, so the antidote worked perfectly. He then tells them that he'll figure out what's going on, and they actually do say that they know what is going on. The sword hero Ren killed a dragon nearby, but left the body to rot, and it's decomposing above them, and it's basically just spreading this horrible air throughout their village. And now Fumi nods, saying he'll go and handle that right now. He heads up with his team and his party, and they approach this dragon. He's basically about to tell Swampert to encase the dragon and they'll take it down, but just as he's about to say this, the dragon comes back to life. A zombie-like dragon is now about to fight them. He throws out all of his Pokemon. He's not going to deal with this one-on-one by any means, but he does tell Chespin to run away. He's not really that strong. Chespin is like level 7 at this point, and he doesn't want him to get hurt. He Mega Evolves his Swampert, especially because, well, his Swampert's going to be good against a dragon, he assumes. At least, I mean, any flames that he shoots at him, and the Swampert begins to attack the dragon. And substantial damage is created, and even Entei begins to charge at it, bite it, and use various moves that he obviously has. Extrasensory, Lava Plume, things like that would hurt it. And then also the Houndoom actually helps as well, hitting it with as much as possible, striking it down, and it seems like the dragon is slowly but surely getting hurt more and more. That's until, well, Naofumi decides that he's going to throw an Ultra Ball at the dragon. With the dragon basically detained for now, he throws a Pokeball. this will help in terms of getting rid of the body, so maybe he can actually have it. He eventually catches the dragon after it rocks 3 times, and he picks it up to see what the Pokemon is. And he sees that the Pokemon is actually holding a Mega Stone already, and that Pokemon is Salamence. Not only did Naofumi just acquire a level 55 Salamence, he also dealt with the dragon problem for the village. He heads back down with his new Pokemon and basically explains to them that he handled the entirety of what happened, and they thank him. They thank him so much and ask how he was able to handle it, and he said that he had to, well, kind of defeat a zombie dragon and then catch it into this Pokeball. And they are shocked to hear this, but just say that he did a good job and then they just thank him. But with all that done, he's kind of done with everything in terms of the village. His level currently is upwards of level 30 and bridging level 40, and once he gets to level 40, he actually unlocks a brand new item. So he wants to definitely check that out on top of it. But Raphtalia is actually about to be level 40 as well, meaning that she'll need a class upgrade. So they head off and they begin heading toward the capital once again. But before they arrive, Chespin actually gets away out of his Pokeball and runs toward this small girl. And Chespin begins playing with the girl, and Naofumi walks over and she explains that her name is Melty, that she's actually kind of lost, and she asks them to basically accompany her to the capital, in which they say that's completely fine, and Chespin definitely seems to have taken a liking to her. Chespin jumps on her shoulder and begins jumping around as well. So they then decide to take her to the capital with them, in which when they arrive, Naofumi begins to look for the Dragon Hourglass once again so that they can see if they can get Raphtalia's class upgrade. But before that can happen, someone comes out of nowhere and tries to stab him with a spear, and Naofumi doesn't have a means to dodge, but luckily Swampert immediately comes out and grabs the spear, slamming the person to the ground. Swampert being a decently high level now, we're talking throughout the entire adventures, like Houndoom is probably at a level 40, Swampert level 45, Entei closer to Salamance's level at around 55, and Salamence, who's obviously at level 55. Swampert is able to protect Naofumi as Naofumi gets ready to Mega Evolve the Swamperts, but he stops because someone approaches with royal guards next to her. It's Melty? Melty begins to explain that she, personally, is the heir apparent to the throne, and that she is the second princess, and that Malty, the one that is antagonizing all of this and making all of this occur, well, she is supposed to be the next princess in line, but she has such a toxic personality that the queen didn't see her fit. She then tells her little sister to basically scram, but Melty disagrees, saying that if she did, that all this would just occur right in front of her, that this is not very princess-like by her sister. Her sister is frustrated to hear this, but Melty forces them all to stop, and she basically tells Naofumi to follow her. They head over to the Dragon Hourglass to get Raphtalia her class upgrade, but it seems like even with Melty there, the church refuses to let him in and actually let him upgrade his class, in which Melty gets frustrated by this and wonders why they're acting in such a way, but he says, or begins to ask, if there's any other places with Dragon Hourglasses, in which she says that there is. She says that there's one at Schildfrieden. So he throws out Salamence and asks for basically the location. She explains where it is, and he says that he'll go with Raphtalia and Salamence and head over there basically right now. But before he goes, he should go check in with Elhard. When he checks in, he actually has some new items for him. Some new items that will actually boost his Pokemon, luckily, and that also he upgraded some other stuff as well, giving him something called a full restore and some other nice items. Naofumi thanks him and says that he's been really helpful, giving him basically most of the money Naofumi has, and Elhard takes half of it and gives it back, saying that it's truly a pleasure working with him. He doesn't need to overpay him that much. Naofumi nods and thanks him, and they head off to Schildfrieden. Before even the wave would begin, in which they actually just use Salamence to fly all the way over there, and they Mega Evolve Salamence, and he goes extremely fast through the air, flying all the way to Shield Frieden. And when they arrive, they're actually greeted by some noblemen, asking who he is, and he explains that he's one of the heroes. And that's when he learns that all the other countries, well, they are going through this as well. The waves and all of that, and all such of that. And he is so baffled by this, he was never told, and he apologizes, saying that he wishes he could help, and he's going to help. So this wave is actually going to be fought at Shield Frieden, but he needs to be able to tell Loot Village of that as well, and maybe he'll leave a Pokemon there to help. He looks around and decides to maybe he'll go into his PC. Maybe he can leave a Pokemon there to basically watch guard. So he looks through his PC and he finds that Voltorb he got in the very beginning, thinking that maybe if he trained him up in the next little bit, well, he can leave him at Loot Village permanently and have basically its own little mascot and its own little protector. So he decides that he's going to get Raftalia's class upgrade. He does just that, in which she chooses her own little upgrade, and then he's going to fly back and train, and obviously train his Voltorb to a decently high level and leave it at Loot Village to help the other warriors that are going to be there to protect it. So he does just that. In the next 48 hours or so-ish, he flies around doing a lot of things, and then leaving his newly evolved Electrode at Loot Village. He apologizes that he hasn't been able to be around very much, but he explains that now he has a very important job, and that is to protect this village. The Voltorb, or the Electrode, is extremely excited to do this, and everybody actually runs around and pets the Electrode, excited to have its protector. He then heads off once again to just scout out more and more villages, eventually finding somewhere that there's basically these people, these refugees that are starving. He then lands and begins asking them what's going on, and they begin begging him for food. Luckily, they have a way of getting food, and obviously he has food as well. So he plants a bunch of seeds, and then also feeds them whatever he can find. And they are grateful to hear this, but he asks what even happened, why are they even in this position? And they explain that, well, they were basically in this horrible place not too long ago, and, well, you could say Itsuki helped them and saved them, made a revolution, but unfortunately it just put another corrupt government in, and how they all fled from this revolution, and it's just horrible. So Naofumi, actually kind of frustrated, wants to find both Ren and Itsuki. He wants to talk to Ren about the whole dragon incident, and obviously talk to Itsuki about this so-called revolution that he messed up. And eventually he does find them, but immediately they accuse him of stealing their money, but he begins to explain to them that he didn't steal their money, that they didn't even do their jobs, that Ren obviously just left the dragon there, that it was decomposing and causing sickness, illness. And Paul Itsuki started a revolution and only put a new government just as corrupt as the old one. And they all basically just made the situations even worse. Ren and Itsuki are shocked to hear this and realize that this world is slightly different than what they expected. Itsuki questions a little bit more, but eventually they cave in, thinking that Naofumi wouldn't be lying. What's the point of lying in this situation anyways? With 24 hours left before this next wave, Naofumi wants to level up his Chespin. That is his goal here. He wants to level it up as much as possible, so he begins to just throw out his Swampert or his Houndoom, and has Chespin run around with it as Chespin hits a monster, and then his Swampert or Houndoom will finish it off. And this happens for the next 12 hours-ish, and then he's going to take a break to basically get some rest before this next wave. So he handles all of that, getting his Chespin to a Quilladin, and then eventually a Chestnut. With little time left, his party then hops back in their Pokeballs, he hops on Salamence, and so does Raftalia, and they begin flying away, in which one of the heroes sees them. Ren sees him and asks what is he doing, that the wave starts in 4 hours, but he explains that this is not the only place that is affected by waves, and actually all the countries are. So he's going to go to a nearby country he knows, and he's going to go protect them, and then after he defeats the boss over there, he'll come back over here to check up on them. So he flies off, and when he arrives, he just arrives in the nick of time to actually fight the boss at Shield Freedom. The main boss then arrives for the wave, and it's something pretty simple. It's nothing too crazy, it's actually just another thing very similar to the dragon he fought before, and it's actually kind of easy to defeat it. It's this ghost-like dragon in which he just flies around on Salamence and uses his Entei, his Houndoom, and his Swampert for long-range attacks, and he has his Chestnut on the Salamence, so when the dragon tries to attack, he uses Spiky Shield to block the attack, and it actually hurts the dragon as well, defeating the dragon with relative ease, and, well, killing it, not really having a chance to actually capture it, unluckily enough. But with the wave disappearing, he flies back to Melromark, and everybody thanks him as he's flying away. He arrives at Melromark, and, well, it seems like the wave is still going on. It's still pushing really strong. He goes over to see where the main boss is, finding that they're just basically arguing, bickering, yelling at each other about that, oh no, this is how you beat the boss, no, this is how you beat the boss. They're not even thinking for themselves or thinking for each other, trying to combine ideas. Naofumi yells at them really quick and tells them to stop messing around. Raphtalia immediately charges in toward the Dutchman, stabbing at its shadow, revealing the true boss of the wave. Or that's what they think, at least. A Soul Eater appears and begins fighting them, in which Naofumi is able to actually knock out the Soul Eater, more or less put it into a position where it's going to basically die, but he decides to throw a Pokeball at it, capturing a brand new Pokemon. But as he's capturing this said Pokemon, another Soul Eater arrives. He's about to fight it as well, but someone else kills it. He looks around to the other heroes, but they're not even moving. They haven't even made a move. Someone else has just arrived. Someone that is actually the true boss of the wave. And this is Glass, a woman in a black kimono wielding a twin-bladed war fans, or actually two twin-bladed war fans. The true enemy of the wave is actually here and now. He basically stands his ground as his Pokeball captures the Soul Eater, turning that Soul Eater into a Gengar. Glass looks at Naofumi and is kind of impressed, thinking that maybe he is extremely strong. Looking at the other three and immediately blasts them away, and they're basically out of commission almost instantaneously. She nods. Yeah, I thought so. They don't seem very strong. Are they really heroes? Legendary heroes. What a joke. Especially with them. You, on the other hand, I've never heard of you. You use these little monsters. Very interesting. Naofumi then says that he is the legendary Pokemon trainer. That it might seem outlandish, but these little monsters, other known as Pokemon, are very strong. She then smirks, saying that she hopes that he is as strong as them, and he says not to underestimate his entire party. She then begins to try and blast them, but the Chestnut that he has. Chestnut steps in front, using Spiky Shield, easily negating the damage, and she smirks. Wow, now it looks like all your Pokemon, you say, are in unison. So let's see how strong all of them actually are. All of his Pokemon, all 6, including Raphtalia, stand in front of him. His Gengar comes out of the Pokeball, and they begin to stare daggers into Glass as Glass gets ready to fight. It's as if she is a Pokemon herself, and now it's going to be basically a 8 versus 1 if you include Raphtalia. How will this fight go? Will him and his Pokemon and Raphtalia be enough to defeat Glass? Do they have enough up their sleeve to defeat her in this type of duel? She just wiped the floor with the other 3 heroes. Can Naofumi even live up to that same expectation? That same power? Well, you'll have to find out on the next part, on the finale of What If Naofumi was the legendary Pokemon trainer. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, sub, comment down below, leave any suggestions you have for future What Ifs. And obviously I put a little bit more, by a little bit, I mean a decent amount more effort into this video than I have any other one. I hope you guys like the art. Make sure to check the description below. I'm pretty sure I'll have the person that made the art in the description below. Also, I hope you like the little layout that I did. It's nothing too fancy, but I think it's definitely something that you can keep track of and know what Pokemon he currently has and has throughout this entire time. And if you want me to switch out any of the Pokemon he has for new Pokemon, and you can rationalize it, so maybe we can find the Pokemon in this Shield Hero world, let me know. And maybe I'll just do that, but for now, this will be his party. And I hope y'all enjoyed, like I said, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.